What happens when a red carpet reporter bets her plus one that she can go a month without drinking and wins more than just dinner? Today's guest turned that playful wager into a movement, a media platform, and a new way to experience life. Stick around to hear how one dry January changed everything.
Welcome to the Sober Life Rocks podcast. You may have made the decision not to drink alcohol, or at the very least, not at work-related events. Whether you've never been a drinker, are in recovery, or made a health-related decision, we see you, and you are not alone. In today's world, networking, socializing, and celebrations often happen over drinks, and the struggle can be real. Through this podcast, we're changing that narrative. We're here to create a community where individuals like you, who choose not to drink or drink less, can find camaraderie, support, and practical advice.
Before we get started, Sober Life Rocks is hosting a conference, Amplify Sober Voices, on January 15th, 2026, where we're bringing together influencers and speakers, writers and podcasters to reimagine what a truly inclusive alcohol-optional world would look like. And if you're interested in being part of the growing movement we're seeing, we would love to have you join us. Learn more at amplifysobervoices.com. My guest today is Hilary Sheinbaum, who is a journalist, the founder of goingdry.co, and the author of The Dry Challenge: How to Lose the Booze for Dry January, Sober October, and any other alcohol-free month. It's a judgment-free guide to giving up alcohol for a month-long period. And Going Dry Workbook is a practical guide to drinking less and living more. Her platform, goingdry.co, hosts non-alcoholic events in New York City, Los Angeles, Atlanta, Nashville, and other cities coming to you. And also, she actively curates non-alcoholic menus for bars, restaurants, and hotels. Her first TEDx talk covering the topic of dry dating went live in October 2023. Hilary, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me.
I mean, you're so much more than your bio, and I just am so excited to have you here. But I would love for you to start off talking about this bet. Your dry January started with this bet with a friend. Can you take me back to that moment? Like, what was going through your mind and what happened as a result of that?
Yeah, it's funny because it was a very silly and spontaneous bet that was honestly made under the influence. And it was, I'll take you back to December 31st, 2016. I was at a party on the Upper West Side of Manhattan at my friend's apartment. And we were there celebrating New Year's Eve with, friends, and people were drinking. And I was too. And I started texting people who were not at the party to wish them a happy new year. And so one of them was my close friend, Alejandro. And he was typically, my plus one to a lot of my celebrity interviews and red carpets and parties and things like that. And I proposed this bet, and I said to him, the premise was that we would go an entire month of January and do dry January together. And the person who won the bet would have dinner paid for by the person who lost the bet. That was essentially what we had agreed to. If both of us won, we would, find a place to go celebrate together. And if we both lost, then there would be no celebratory dinner, no, no celebrations at all, but just kind of, a little bit of disappointment. So at midnight, our bet started, and I ended up going 31 days without drinking a sip of alcohol. And unfortunately for my friend Al, he ended up meeting a girl at a bar who peer pressured him. So I won, and he ended up paying, I think, about $800 for our dinner, but I won a lot more than just like a fancy meal. After my 31 days of sobriety, I really felt mentally better, physically better, and it had just changed so many things about my lifestyle in the process that I wouldn't have realized otherwise. And so, yeah, that was my first dry January in 2017. And this next January will actually be my 10th, my 10th dry January. So, yeah, I do it every year, and I've done a number of, dry months in between and extended period of time. And, yeah, it's a really fun activity and month that I look forward to now. I think a lot of people do it maybe with the attitude of like, oh, I got to reset or I have to do this, like I went overboard in December, but yeah, it's something that I look forward to every time.
So it would be helpful for everybody to know more about like who you are and the lifestyle that you lead. So,
Yeah.
I mean, you're a journalist, you're all these things. Talk to me a little bit about that because that wasn't necessarily in your bio, but it flavors the life that you live.
Absolutely. So I'll give you like a little bit of a taste of what it used to be like versus what it's like now. So back then I was on red carpets or covering parties or interviewing celebrities in, one-on-one interviews. Um, Mostly like every day. Really like at least 4 times a week I was going out. And if I wasn't, doing that for my work, it was because I was like going on dates as, 20 something in New York and, going to brunches with my friends and going to birthday parties and things like that and things that really involved alcohol. But a big part of my job, not just on the celebrity circuit and on the red carpet and going to these parties, was also that I, as a freelance writer, covered food and beverage. And a lot of that coverage was based in alcohol. So I would interview sommeliers and cicerones and, beverage directors. And I would go to a lot of, launch parties for new tequilas or wines or what have you. So a lot of my personal and professional life was like kind of interwoven with like, going out and just, being a 20 something and really like exploring, my new adult life in a new city. So that was then. Over the years, it's definitely evolved. Now I still interview celebrities sometimes, but not as often. And certainly now I write about a lot of other things, and one of those things is not alcohol. So I've written 3 books, 2 of which are in the dry space, and I write a lot of stuff for the wedding section of the New York Times and sometimes the style section, and I write, pieces for Yahoo, and I write about everything. So just, not booze. So that's a little bit about my writing career.
So
And then
what happens when you now go to let's say a launch party or a tasting or something, and you are in one of these dry months?
yeah, so typically I'm not going to cocktail hours anymore. A lot of those, food and beverage specific events are centered around their alcohol offerings. And so those are things that I just opt out of in general. If I am going for a restaurant opening, I'm typically looking, the first thing is at their mocktail menu, even before I'm looking at their food. If they don't have non-alcoholic options, then I'm, usually drinking a Diet Coke or something else. But I also like take it as an opportunity to talk to their beverage director and understand like, why they've made decisions to not have non-alcoholic options, if that's the case. And, from there, I've actually worked with a number of bars and restaurants and hotels to help them incorporate non-alcoholic options and make their menus more inclusive to people who are not drinking or drinking and just like taking a night off or like, their next beverage off. But yeah, a lot of the events that I go to these days are more based in like fitness or health or, some other things. So it just depends on the day, but a lot of the times, it's not really just like on brand for me or my lifestyle anymore to like go to late night things. And my bedtime's pretty early these days. So, I'm not
Yeah.
staying up until like 1 in the morning, at the bar.
Yeah. Well, I ask that because I think for a lot of people, their jobs force them into these situations. I think about
Mhm.
salespeople who have to take people out, or they are invited by their bosses to go to the company happy hour. And
Yeah.
like we go into these spaces and look for what our options are, and it's frustrating. I mean, I was just somewhere recently and they had a mocktail option, little tiny thing, and it was like juice with sparkling water, juice with sparkling water, juice with juice, or soda.
Juice with juice. That's my favorite. Um, No, you're totally right. And I think that sometimes it's, an educational opportunity for the people who are, um, you know, running those facilities. And sometimes it can be very frustrating as, a consumer, who's looking for non-alcoholic options. But I agree with you. I think that, you know, not as frequently now, but definitely kind of as my lifestyle has evolved over the past 10 years, especially in the beginning, you have to kind of take charge of those meetings and those gatherings, right? So instead
Mhm.
of planning to meet somebody at a bar or over drinks, you say to them, hey, like, let's go to a workout class. Like, let's grab coffee, let's grab smoothies, like, let's do something, you know, that's social and like can facilitate networking, but isn't centered around booze. So I think
Mhm.
sometimes it takes a little bit of creativity. And I think certainly in a lot of big cities, there are more options. Like in New York, there's, places where you can have like a social sauna hour and like people go to, these places where they do cold plunges together. And I think it just really depends on being a little bit more creative and also, what's available to you. But I think that a lot of the times, whoever it is that you're meeting with will actually appreciate, doing an activity that isn't so booze involved because even if they drink, like it's really hard to, be able to do that every night and every week. So I think that
Mm.
people look forward to, different opportunities.
And I feel like the things that you just mentioned would be so much more memorable.
Yeah, absolutely.
Even down to like, let's go to a putt putt place. Like
Oh,
there's so many different
thousand
options.
percent. It's kind of like dating, like even and dating too. Like, a lot of first dates, people don't say like, do you want to go on a date? They say, let's grab a drink. And I think that when you're, dating and you're trying to make memories with somebody or you're trying to like, win somebody's business or what have you, I think that going and having these like unique experiences is really different. It's also like an opportunity to open up the conversation. Like think about like, remembering like a date that you went on that, I don't know, you were sitting at a bar and even though it might have been a great night, think about like if we went bowling or if we went like ice skating or if we did something, even if we took a walk and it's nice out, like, wow, what a change of pace. Like, I think it's just a really nice breath of fresh air.
Hmm. So I want to circle back though, because you mentioned that occasionally you'll use that as an opportunity to talk to the beverage manager.
Yeah.
So just, it suddenly set off this light bulb in my head. Like, could an ordinary person like me do that? And what would that look like?
Yeah, of course. I think that especially coming from consumers, if you're frequenting a bar or any kind of venue and you're literally saying to their management, like, hey, I want to spend money here, but like your options are limiting me to ordering water or, a Diet Coke, which might cost $3. Instead, I'm willing to spend, $17 on a mocktail over and over and over again. I think that it is not only music to their ears because it's better for their bottom line, but also I think that just kind of planting the seed of here is an idea, an opportunity for potentially more customers to do the same. So I think that you never want to walk into somebody's kitchen and tell them how to cook, but I do think that if you say it in a nice way that is appealing to them, it can be very helpful.
And what has the response been when you've had those conversations?
Sometimes, I mean, to be honest with you, I've had people tell me to get lost, but very rarely. And like I think most of the time, it's been welcomed. One of the properties that I work with is the Four Seasons in Jackson Hole. They're actually opening a new steakhouse on their property this summer, and it will have a really robust range of non-alcoholic options. And I think that's important, and especially like on vacation. We're not all looking to booze it up during our holidays. We want to feel good, especially if we're taking time off of work. So yeah, Four Seasons Jackson Hole, the Four Seasons in Santa Fe. There's also a really fun hotel. It's really nice in Marco Island, the JW Marriott. They have I want to say like over a dozen bars and restaurants, and nearly all of them have non-alcoholic options. And I think it's really important, especially in like a Florida hotel. Like people are going to be drinking at the pool and on the beach, but like even if they are, you don't necessarily need alcohol in every single, drink. So I think there's so many opportunities. And yeah, those are all, those have been really inclusive places for, people who aren't drinking for whatever reason.
What's funny is I'm on a Facebook group for people who are looking for mocktail options. And somebody just recently mentioned this one all-inclusive resort down in Mexico, and their entire beverage menu is all non-alcoholic.
Oh,
And then
wow.
they have underneath it can add vodka or can add
I love
boom.
that.
And it's like the premise is like, here's this amazing salad, and you can
Yeah.
add chicken, right?
Right.
It's such a great idea.
And
But you
you know
start
what?
with an amazing drink, you can add a shot of something.
Absolutely. And like, how amazing is that? Because like, also, as somebody who personally does not eat chicken, when I look and I see a salad that has everything that I want and more, but has chicken on it, I'm like, do I really want to remove that chicken? Because now I'm paying for the chicken that I'm not eating anyway. And I think that like your point, like if you want to add, your shot of, vodka or tequila or whatever it is, then so be it. But like I think
Right.
having just the baseline of like, here's a wonderfully concocted, drink, I think that's great.
That's amazing. Okay. I want to switch to your book.
Yes.
So you have this book, and now you have a workbook
Yes.
that talks about going dry for a 30-day challenge. So tell me more about that.
So my first book, The Dry Challenge, was all about how to do it. Like basically coming from somebody who, going into my first dry challenge, I had no experience. I had no idea what I was doing. I had not planned for it. I literally just made a silly bet while I was drunk. And then the next day woke up in my apartment with my, alcohol bottles like lined up above my fridge and, wine in the fridge and like, just
And the habit. Yeah.
20 something things. Just like I didn't have any, foresight because I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't plan on it. So I think, the dry challenge is really about um how to do a dry January or any other month by somebody who has done it many times, and especially as a first timer who had no idea what they're doing, and like just giving helpful hints and tips and non-alcoholic cocktail recipes and the works. It talks about like how to deal with naysayers or like people who are just not supporting you, or how to go on dates and how it's beneficial and how you'll notice changes in your body, or maybe you won't, but all of that. And then going dry is really the workbook component, but it's mostly about the reader. So it does give some helpful advice, but it really asks, the person reading it to reflect on why it is that they're drinking, what it is about, specific activities that like are making them feel certain ways. It asks them to, rate their moods and things like that. So it's a lot of journaling, but it's also a lot of interactive activities. That's kind of repetitive. Interactive activities. A lot of activities that are, just that ask, the reader to just like be honest with themselves. And, it's all confidential. It's not like a quiz. There's no, grading at the end. So people can just scribble down their thoughts and their feelings and really take the opportunity to reflect.
What kind of feedback have you gotten from readers and people who've used the workbook?
It's it's actually crazy. Even before my first book came out, I had written an article for the New York Times about sheltering in place during COVID without alcohol. And um somebody had emailed me and basically told me that they realized that after reading my article that they needed to give up alcohol. And, I thanked this person who I'd never met, this random stranger on the internet who read my thing. I was like, thank you so much for writing me. Like, please keep me posted. And I remember we touched base 6 months later when my first book came out, and she told me that she had been sober for 6 months. She has two kids, was not, able to get help from her family, raising her children because they lived miles and miles away. But she felt happier and healthier and like a better person and a better mom because of that. And I'm like getting emotional about it. But I followed up with her a few times, and like it's been really heartwarming to know that like It's definitely it definitely makes an impact. I know that, there have been a lot of people, ironically, even, in my life, strangers included, but definitely people in my life who I've known now for 10, 15 years. And during my first dry challenge, they gave me some shit for what I was doing. They were like, this is the stupidest thing. Like, you are ruining our, like, our, like our friendship, or like you're ruining like this good thing that we have going. And like, how are you going to date? And like, really gave me a hard time. They were not happy with my decision to not drink. And, out of fear that they were like losing a friend or a buddy, or like, somebody to go out with. And it's crazy because even a couple of years later, they were the ones saying like, wow, your book helped me. Like, I'm really considering, doing a dry month, or I just did my first dry month and I feel amazing. And, and since, like, I've had a few friends who have given up alcohol completely. They drink less than I do, which is wild. But I think for a really long time, I think people were like, yeah, great, Hilary, like, that's nice. And they were being like outwardly supportive, but they didn't believe it. And now there are so many people that are just like, yeah, I don't drink anymore. And like, it's really cool what you're doing. And that was not the reality when I started. So it has evolved like many other things. It's changed
I mean,
a lot.
I think that's so cool that people have responded to you, in both people who have actually gotten sober, but also that curiosity,
Yeah,
and that like it doesn't have to be an all or nothing thing. And I really, really appreciate that about your approach. I mean, you drink now and you don't drink now. And it's like
yeah,
it doesn't matter what's in your cup, but you make conscious choices.
totally. And I think it's like, it's just being more aware of those choices. I think when you embark on a dry January, I think, at least for me, I can't speak for everyone, but I think that there are times where you're like, wow, I could just drink. Like, I could do this and like, it's fine. Like, I just call this whole thing off. And that for me, like, there was that moment on January 1st, because the next day I had gone to like brunch with my friends, and the waiter brought out complimentary tequila shots. And that was like my now or never moment. I was like, okay, I could take this shot and like text my friend and call it off and be like, just kidding, I was drunk, like, haha. Or like, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it right. And I did. And I think that was like a major one, but there were other moments too where I was like, okay, do I speak up? Do I just like pass? Do I just like have a sip? Like, do I not? And I think when you go through a dry January, it's almost like you build that muscle. You are so aware of how many times you're offered alcohol, how many times alcohol is the center of an event or an experience, how many times, even if you're having a bad day, people are like, oh, have a drink, or like, you want to celebrate
Or a
something.
good
Oh,
day.
let's have a drink. Like, like you're bored, you're having just a day, like, let's have a drink. Like, it is just the default for so many things in like our lives. So lives, lives. And I think that I'm like, I can't talk today. But I think that like, it definitely doesn't have to be. And I think that like by the end of my first dry January, I was just so aware of like every decision that I was making in regard to alcohol. And it's something that it hasn't, it's still like, I'm aware of it all the time. You know what I mean? And I don't think it's just because of like what I've done with my career now, but I think that once you do that, like once you are so actively like avoiding something, you are just like, wow, this is everywhere.
Yeah. I mean, it's the buying a new car effect, right? You buy a brand new red Honda and suddenly you see red Hondas everywhere.
Yeah,
I think that awareness gets definitely raised when you choose to do something. You see it everywhere.
everywhere. And the thing is, like with alcohol, you already know it's everywhere. Even like before I embarked on this, even while I was like writing about alcohol, I was like, it's everywhere. It's in every, TV commercial. It's on every sign when you go to a restaurant, like all of the umbrellas, like at the picnic tables have like, booze labels all over them. You know what I'm saying? Like everywhere you go, like you walk down a street, there's a sign. And again, it's like sponsored by like something, or whatever it is, like you're watching sports and like the advertisements on like the backboard, not like a
Hmm.
basketball, but like in soccer or like whatever it is, like
Yep.
everything has, like on the subways, like I'm like, it's everywhere. You really can't escape it. But I think you just become so much more hyper aware of those things. Yeah.
Yep. So you told me when we talked before this about these events that you're doing in different cities. Tell me
Yeah.
about that because that was really intriguing to me.
Yeah. So when my first book came out, it was during COVID and I was not able to throw a like book launch party. So 11 months later, I was finally able to have an event and I hosted a spin class. I invited like 45 people. The room was packed. And then afterwards we enjoyed these like non-alcoholic beverages. And I got such positive feedback from the event. I invited, media and influencers and friends and just like people in my community who were like supportive. And I, everyone was just like, this is so much fun. Like, we don't want to go to events that are like, it require us to drink and like have small talk with people like that we don't want to talk to. Like, we want to, do an activity that is good for us. And also, like, this is so cool. Like, what is this? Like, what are these non alcoholic options? So, I've continued to do that now. So that first event was in November of 2021. And now in 2025, I throw like at least once a month or like maybe every other month, depending on the season. And I love gathering, people who are like-minded or at least willing to try, something different. And so I've worked with some really amazing brands, including Barry's Boot Camp and some non-alcoholic beverages like Fluair, which makes these non-alcoholic spirits, and Free Spirits, which also makes non-alcoholic spirits and canned cocktails. And it's been really fun just to, be among people who are excited about, this movement and this lifestyle. And also, yeah, I feel really lucky to also be able to provide a place where people can gather and socialize and network and not feel pressured to drink if they don't want to. Really, they don't have the
And
option. I don't serve
yeah, I was
alcohol
going to
at my
say,
events, but they know that
because
signing up.
I think one of the perceptions that people have is that if they aren't drinking, it's not going to be fun.
Yeah, which is super lame. I mean, the way that people tell me about like how, I mean, not anymore because nobody, at least people won't say that to my face because they know me, but and know what I stand for. But I think back in the day, people would be like, "Oh, I don't trust you," or like, "Because you don't drink," or they'd be like, "Oh, your life must be so boring." I'm like, "Really?" Because like being hungover is so much fun. Like, wanting to vomit is like the best, right? No, I'm just kidding. But I think that like, are you kidding? Like I ran the New York City Marathon. Like if I had been drinking during those months of training, like would have never happened. Like there are so many amazing things and opportunities that I have been able to like accomplish and like just be a part of because like I wasn't drinking. It's unmatched. So I don't know. I think I've become more exciting. I mean, maybe people who like love celebrities would say like my life used to be cooler, but I think like now, I still get to interview celebrities and I get to like, have more energy and just socialize and I don't know, travel and do cool things too. And none of it involves alcohol. So I don't know. I think life gets better without it, but
1,000%.
yeah, it's
So,
been
kind of wrapping all that into a bow and reflecting on your
yeah.
journey, like, what advice would you give someone who they're sober curious or thinking about taking on a 30-day challenge, but they're just hesitant?
Yeah,
Have
I
that,
think
yeah.
first of all, like obviously I'm going to say do it, like just try. I also think that there is a lot of pressure for people in the month of January to like basically like get their lives together. Like after December, people are like, I'm going to the gym. I'm giving up alcohol. I'm giving up sugar. Like I'm going to be like in my best shape of my entire life. And it's like, okay, it's January 3rd. Like we all need to calm down. And I really do think that January is the easiest time to give up alcohol because like so many other people are giving it up at that time. However, like if you have like if you're getting married in January or it's your birthday or like, that, you're going on vacation and you might have a drink at the pool, like that's okay. Like start another time or like do your dry month and just call it like a one drink January and like move on. Like you don't have to, hate yourself for it. I think depending on, also like what your lifestyle is and if it's an absolute necessity. I mean, clearly if you need a recovery program, that is a completely different story. But I think that if you are somebody who is a social drinker and is just looking to um, wind it down, like just try it. Like you can always go back to the way that you were living. I think it's hard to, because like once you feel good, then you're kind of hooked. But I think to each their own. And I really do think like you have nothing to lose. It's literally 30 days of 30 or 31 days or 29 days if it's February, 28 days, maybe 28 days of your life. And then like you can decide.
Yeah. And the whole notion of this is an all or nothing type of deal. That's what I love about your approach is it doesn't have to be.
Yeah. No, I really think like, I mean, there are some years where I'll do a couple dry months like scattered throughout the year. And like sometimes I'll do 6 months of not drinking. And sometimes like it's funny, like people don't offer me drinks usually anymore if they know me. Because they assume that I'm not drinking. And then if they do see me drinking, they're like, whoa, Hillary's drinking. This is an occasion. But I really, I don't think they're judging me, but I really have like no judgment in that regard. Will I cut someone off if they're drinking too much? Absolutely. But I think that like really it's to each their own. I think like I am such a strong proponent of drinking less and giving up alcohol for, a set period of time. But I really think that if you find something that is not like a 30-day regimen and is more like a, I don't know, 10-day regimen, like start small. Like, you don't have to commit the rest of your life. You're not getting married to it, but maybe you will. So I always say like date it for 30 days, like date the idea. And then if you love it, then like you can continue your serious relationship. If not, you break it off, like whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your disclaimer because somebody like me, that just would never have been an option. Right.
Mm-hmm.
When I got sober, it was very clear to me that I couldn't just have one. I couldn't just have some and then not have some. And so that's a whole different story.
Yeah, it really is. There's a true difference, I think, between, people who are social drinkers and people who, are who need to stop completely. So I definitely say, in all of my books and in all of my interviews, I am not a doctor, I'm not a medical expert. I think that it's important to speak to somebody who is, and if you are truly struggling, if you're trying to give up alcohol for 31 days or any amount of time, and it's really really proving to be difficult, then it's important to reach out to somebody who is an expert in that category.
Mm-hmm. Yep. But the bottom line, the thing that I wanted to kind of bring you on for is we're all about amplifying sober voices. And the main thing is we don't care what's in your cup. We just want to normalize that people can make these choices.
Yeah.
We don't want to be put in the kiddie corner anymore with our little juice dispensers.
Juice on juice. Yeah.
Juice on juice. Exactly. And what I've heard today is some really good tips, like being able to go to the beverage manager and say, hey, I would love to spend more money with you, if only.
Yeah. Take my money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Please.
But also, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, but also the idea of initiating alcohol-free, whether it's one-on-one with a client or whether it's throwing a party where it's doing something different. I mean, all of these ideas are things that anybody can do. Anybody can integrate into their lives, whether they're fully sober, whether they occasionally don't drink, or whether they just want to set up an environment where people can connect on a different level.
Yeah, totally. And I was also going to say, like, there are other options. Like, I obviously promote my books and I love that people read them. But, if that's not for you, or if like you want to do some things that are different, obviously some people are really social and they come to my events or they go to other events and they want to connect with people and have a community. I think that's amazing. But if you're somebody who's a little bit less social, that's okay. There are also like amazing apps, like Reframe is one of them. And, it's helped, I think, nearly 1 million people like lessen their alcohol consumption, which I think is phenomenal. So I think if you want to do things differently, like there are absolutely options for everyone, every kind of person, every, personality. And it's definitely worth exploring.
1,000%.
Yeah.
Okay. Last thing that I like to ask, if you have a legacy that you could leave, what would that be?
Oh, I got to think about that. I think that's a really good question. I think I hope that people, make better choices when it comes to their lifestyles. I think that, I think that drinking less can often lead to healthier decisions in general. And I always say jokingly, like nobody orders a kale salad when they're like wasted at 2 a.m., right? You're like ordering cheese fries, you're ordering pizza, like you're ordering chicken fingers. Like, I mean, God bless if you are ordering a kale salad at 2 a.m. But I think that,
And we don't wake up in strangers' beds
yeah,
when we're not drinking.
unless you do, and that's fine. But whatever it is, like I think I hope that like even if it's drinking less or if that leads to something else or like, whatever it is, like I just hope that um, more positive decisions are made, throughout. And I think that kind of has a rippling effect on other people's lives around you too. So yeah, I think just more better, more positive, um, more helpful decision making that can really like penetrate not just like your lives and the people around you, but also people in their lives too.
I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been
Thank you
lovely.
so, so much. I feel like your story is just another version of how making these conscious choices can not only impact you, but now this ripple effect,
Yeah.
all the people around you. And so, to our listeners, if Hilary's story resonated with you and has had a ripple effect on you, like consider exploring her resources, whether it's goingdry.co or checking out her books, The Dry Challenge and Going Dry, a workbook. These are valuable tools to anyone curious about um, seeing what it would be like to do a 30-day challenge. And don't forget to get your ticket to Amplify Sober Voices happening January 15th in Orlando. It's an event dedicated to celebrating and connecting all sober voices from around the world. Visit amplifysobervoices.com for more details. Until next time, keep showing up, stay proud, and remember, sober life rocks because you rock.